Hello, everyone. A very good evening to one and all. On behalf of the Counselling Cell of Synod College, I would like to welcome each and every one of you to this special session this evening entitled Real-Time Resilience During Coronavirus Times. So we live in trying times. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, many of us have directly or indirectly been reeling under its effects. Pandemics are a burden not only on the economy, but on medical and social development as well. But most importantly, it also affects the mental well-being of people. Because of the novelty of this disease and its effects, we are experiencing something that we have never experienced before. And this new normal mode of living has generated panic and confusion, fear and anxiety. And many of us, including our young students, are facing various kinds of challenges that are stressful, isolating, and overwhelming. Keeping all this in mind, the counseling cell feels the need to extend support and reach out to the student community, as well as the faculty members, especially those who are going through difficult times at the present moment. So the purpose of today's session is to help find ways to cope with the ill effects of the pandemic so that we come out of it better and stronger and more resilient. So before we begin, I would like to invite Dr. G. Lingdo, coordinator of IQAC, to kindly say a few words.
Thank you so much, Dr. Persara. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the principal, the vice principals, and the entire Synod College family, I want to take this opportunity to greet and to welcome all of you to this online interactive session, which is organized by the Counseling Cell of Synod College. As already mentioned by our chairperson, we are living in very, very difficult, very unprecedented times in the history of our generation. Never before, at least for most of us, have we experienced a situation such as the one that we are experiencing today. Difficult, painful, confusing times that have taxed our bodies, our hearts, our minds in a very, very, in the most difficult possible ways. And we have experienced, and perhaps most of us are experiencing, even as we speak, stress, anxieties, perhaps sickness, pain, loss, death, grief in our own families, in our own lives, and in the lives of others around us. So in such a situation, how do we cope? How do we face the challenge of the times with resilience, with hope, with courage? Keeping all these issues, all these needs in mind, the Counseling Cell of Synod College has very aptly chosen to respond to the need and has therefore organized this very special program. And for that, we are extremely grateful. My hope and my prayer is that this session that we are going to have today will not be the end, but it will actually be the beginning of a very, very meaningful time of interaction and helping our student community right here in our own college, but also the student community at large out there. You know, I'm saying the student community at large because we have chosen to keep and to make this program an open one so that it will not be restricted only to our own college, but that it will be of help and it will benefit others out there who need to hear, who will need to listen to the counsel and the expert and trained guidance of our resource person for this evening, Ms. Kharsati. And having said that this program is meant especially for the students, I also would like to say that I know that this is something that will not only help the students, but everyone out there who's going through difficult times, myself included, because it's a daily battle just to stay afloat, to keep oneself optimistic and positive when everything seems so dark. So I think the need of the hour is, for help, not just for our students, as I've said, but for the entire staff of the college and for everyone out there who have joined us and who will be joining us online will be joining us for the live stream as well. So on this note, I want to thank the organizers once again, the counseling cell of the college. I want to thank Ms. Naphisabet Kharsati for responding to our call to partner with us in this venture. I want to appreciate the students who have joined, and we look forward to a very, very fruitful, a very meaningful and beneficial time for all of us. So thank you so much. I hope that this program will be a success. God bless all of us. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Giri. I would like to remind our students that this session is especially meant for you. So if you have any thoughts or concerns that you would like to share, you can put them up in the chat box or ask questions later, and our resource person, Ms. Naphisabet, will address them at the end of the session. Now, without further ado, I request Dr. R. Lapasam to kindly introduce our resource person.
Good evening to one and all joining us in this program. We are so fortunate to have with us in this program Ms. Naphisabet Kharsati, who will speak to us with regard to this topic. And it is a great pleasure for me to be able to introduce Ms. Kharsati, who is going to talk to us on real-time resilience that we all require during these difficult times, especially with the ongoing pandemic. Ms. Kharsati has completed her studies from Delhi University and the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore. She is a trained clinical psychologist and is actively involved in the care of mental health needs of children, adolescents, adults, and those struggling with substance abuse. She is currently pursuing her PhD at Mumbai and is also practicing at Sankey, Shillong. She strives to broaden her knowledge and expertise as a mental health professional, as well as to enrich her skills as a researcher. So I welcome you, ma'am, and over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for Synod College to invite me, and I understand that the topic that has been given to me is quite a challenge, and I hope I can do justice to the topic. I'll try to share my screen. I hope you can see the screen. All right, thank you so much for inviting me to this occasion. So I hope I can do justice to this topic, and it's not a very easy thing to do at this point of time, but we all have to try to look for some sort of resilience and how we can deal with this pandemic. Now, as we all know, resilience is the ability to withstand and rebound from adversity. And as we all know, we are going through a very trying time at the moment, but we need to find ways to bounce back and deal with this. Now, when we talk about resilience, there are two things that we need to keep in mind. So the first is that resilience can be individual, which so depends on our own strength. And the other side of resilience is also that is relational, and the strength that comes from relationships that we have with others. So as we know, as all of you have mentioned earlier, that this pandemic has given rise to a lot of stress for everyone. Most of us feel very helpless, frustrated, and bored because of the lockdowns and the various other protocols that we need to follow. And because of all of these things, there's increased anxiety, depression, substance use, loneliness, and domestic violence. So apart from this, there are also certain gender-based violence that have been reported during this pandemic, and it was found that especially women are affected, but it's not exclusively they are not, it's not exclusive for women who to be subjected to this violence, but it comes in the form of domestic abuse, rape or sexual assault, commercial or other exploitations. And because of the restrictions of COVID, that is to stay at home, this may increase the opportunity for violence to occur if it's within the household, and also reduces the opportunity for people to seek help should they face this. But we have to understand that COVID is not the cause for the violence, but we need to somehow work through this, through these experiences that we have. Going on through this presentation, I think we need to keep in mind that it is very natural for each of us to feel stress, anxiety, grief, and worry during this time. And because there are certain factors that are affecting our mental health. For instance, there are certain factors which are directly influencing our mental health, that which include family problems, stigma, any health precondition, or financial problems. There are also other factors that are indirectly influencing our mental health, and these include fear of infection, work pressure. Now that most of us have to work from home, there's it becomes very difficult to keep aside a time to focus on our work. Sometimes because of information overload, we feel it affects our mental health, and also this lockdown and social isolation also indirectly affects our mental health. But we also have to look at not only the factors that are influencing our mental health, but also the protective factors, which include how we try to take things more positively, or being in touch spiritually, and also gaining support from our family or our community. So we all know what happens when we are stressed. For instance, we sometimes have feelings of fear, anger, sadness, worry, numbness, frustration. Sometimes there may be changes in our appetite or energy levels, or even things that we used to be interested in, we don't feel interested in when we are stressed out. Sometimes we may have difficulty sleeping, or we experience a lot of nightmares, so we don't feel fresh when we get up in the morning. Sometimes we may have physical reactions to stress. We may have more headaches or body pains, or other bodily problems. Sometimes they can be worsening of chronic health problems or mental health conditions, and also there may be increased use of tobacco, alcohol, and other substances. But we also need to remember that times like these, where there's a lot of stress and crisis, of course it challenges us, but it does not necessarily mean that that has to damage us. So now let's look at how we can cope with this stress and how each of us can build resilience. Now, one thing is that we can have more problem-focused coping. So problem-focused meaning we look at what is the problem at hand. We have we prepare for a practical solution to these things. We have an action plan, or we try out things or other strategies. Now, this could be in the form of, like, for instance, when we are feeling very stressed out or anxious because of news or updates that we keep on seeing every now and then. So if that is the case, we need to find a way to also take a break from watching or reading or listening to a lot of these news or updates, especially including the ones on social media, which all of us pay so much time, on social media these days, because that is the main form of entertainment. Now, yes, of course, knowledge is power, and it's always good for us to be informed, but constantly hearing about the pandemic can be very upsetting for each of us. So sometimes we need to consider limiting our consumption of news to just a couple of times a day, and maybe trying to find time to disconnect from our phones, our TVs, our computer screens, at least for a while. Now, another thing is that we also feel bored or frustrated because we are under this, you know, uh, we have to maintain physical distance and lockdowns and all of that. Now, we have to remember that studies have found that self-care is also something which is very, very important in building resilience. Now, self-care is, available to each of us. Sometimes we can, try to take care of ourselves by just trying to relax and, maybe, do some stretching exercises, or maybe we can try to eat healthy rather than eating junk food, or, exercising regularly, getting plenty of sleep, avoid excessive use of alcohol, tobacco, and other substances, getting vaccinated when the vaccine is available, and also prayer also helps. And in taking care of ourselves, and also if we try to cultivate gratitude, can also help us, deal with these feelings of boredom or frustration. Now, sometimes, maybe all of you will be experiencing this at some point or the other. That is, you have difficulties trying to concentrate on your work or even to complete your work. Now, if this is the case, we need to also try to look at ways to find time to sort of unwind. Because if we just focus on working all the time, our mind is not really present. So maybe sometimes we can try to do some other activities that we enjoy doing. Sometimes we can spend time in outdoor activities while maintaining physical distance. Most of us are still very lucky that we still have space. We're not in buildings and flats where we can't even move out of the house. And also, it is important for us to maintain a routine or a schedule, because of course we have a lot of time in our hands. Being at home, we can do whatever we want, but at the same time, when we do not have a routine or a schedule for ourselves, sometimes we end up wasting a lot of time on doing very unnecessary things. uh, Now, another thing is that sometimes we may feel lonely or alone. And, it is important for us to remember that even though we need to be physically distant from people, it is very, very important for us to remain socially connected. We can find ways and means to do that by talking with people whom we trust, or, about our concerns or feelings. We can find virtual ways of connecting or communicating. And because even studies have found that resilience is associated with perception of social support from family, friends, and significant others. And another thing is that we can also try to connect with our communities, or faith-based organizations, which, we can connect with them online or through social media or by phone or email, because it's not about only helping ourselves, but when we do try to help others cope with stress, it can also make us or our loved ones feel less lonely and isolated, because working together as one community can help create a feeling of solidarity in addressing this COVID situation together. Now, apart from this, some of us may also have to deal with having to quarantine ourselves or isolate ourselves. Now, if this is the case, we need more practical action, which means that we need to first try to anticipate our needs and make adequate provisions for ourselves, our family members, so that before going for isolation, so that we don't unnecessarily have to be anxious about being concerned about the basic needs, whether they're being met or not while we are under quarantine. Another thing is that when we are under quarantine, we need to stay connected and also maintain our social network, as I've mentioned earlier. We also need to pay attention to our own feelings and our own needs. And we need to also engage in healthy activities like exercise, regular sleep routines, and eating healthy food. Again, here we need to also avoid information overload, as I've mentioned earlier, and also to keep encouraging ourselves that even though if we are if we've tested positive with this illness, the mortality rate is pretty low, and if we follow the protocols that the healthcare workers have for us, we will soon be able to reconnect with our friends and our families. So what is important that even though we are doing this problem focused coping is that we need to also acknowledge our own feelings and not to bottle them up. So staying connected is very important. Now, there's another side to coping, that is emotion focused coping. This is how we manage our feelings, our thoughts, because like I mentioned earlier, most of us are feeling very stressed out, and because of this we can feel a lot of feelings of anger, helplessness, and fear, and other things as well. Now, hopelessness can come through because of this uncertainty. And the thing is that probably during this time, we need to cultivate patience in this time of uncertainty. I mean, I understand it's not an easy thing to do, but we need to try to work on that. Another thing is that we may face a lot of anxiety because of this uncertainty, and sometimes this anxiety can lead into a lot of anxiety attacks or panic attacks, where we feel very breathless, and we sweat a lot, and we feel as if we're losing control. If this should happen, we need to try to take deep breaths and focus on the things that are under our control. 4 questions that could probably help us if we're experiencing a lot of anxiety or panic is that we need to ask ourselves, what is under my control at this point of time? For instance, what's going to happen, how long this pandemic is going to last, when this is going, when things can go back to normal. These are all questions that we have no answers for, and none of us have control over these questions. The question is, am I unnecessarily worrying about the worst case scenario and believing that it will actually come true? If this is the case, then probably we need to change what we are worrying or what we're believing in. The third thing is that how have I managed these feelings in the past? Because all of us have experienced anxiety at some point or the other, and we have been able to cope with it. So don't lose hope on yourself and not being able to cope with this anxiety at this point of time. Try to remember a time when you have dealt with stress and anxiety properly at one point of time. Now, the fourth question is that, what can I do at this moment? And probably that can help us contain these feelings of anxiety or panic that we may be experiencing. Another thing that we may be facing right now is a lot of anger and adjustment problems, especially given that we need to be in touch with our, family for an extended period of time. And this is not a normal situation, because most of the time, even if we have disagreements or misunderstandings with our within the family context, we can just move away or not deal with that. But at this point, where we have to all the time interact, we may experience a lot of anger and disagreements. But the important thing that we need to remember here is that anger is very, very natural. It's very, it's very human to feel anger sometimes. But the important thing is, how can we communicate this anger and this disagreement to the point where we do not end up hurting other people, or do we end up hurting ourselves? Now, how do we do this is learning how to communicate this anger or these disagreements by listening before we reacting. Most of us are used to reacting. When we are angry, we react. But the thing is, sometimes it is also important for us to listen and respond rather than react. The second thing is that we need to focus on having more open conversations with our family members, or with people around us whom we are experiencing this anger with, without being defensive, because most of the time we end up pointing the finger and we become very defensive, and that just closes that that open communication that we can have, and we can learn from each other, because we need to understand that even in times of anger, or even in times of disagreement, the aim is to understand each other rather than to prove who's right and who's wrong. Another difficult thing that we need to address during this time is also the grief that we face because of loss that we experience because of a loved one. And it becomes very difficult when we are grieving, and at the same time trying to cope with feelings of fear and anxiety, and it can be very overwhelming for any of us. The way prevention protocols, what they have said also have changed the way we gather and the way we grieve together. So it becomes very difficult for us to sort of grieve together at this point of time. But we need to keep in mind that we can always connect with other people. And we can do this by maybe we can try to invite other people or host conference calls with our family members, our friends. Maybe we can ask our family members or our friends to share stories, pictures through email or through phone, through video chat or other apps and social media. We can coordinate a time and a date for the loved ones to honor the one whom we have lost by reading a selected poem, or a prayer, or maybe creating memories or rituals by developing like virtual memory book or blogs, or by asking family and members to and other family members to contribute their memories and stories about the loved ones. Or maybe we can do an activity like planting a tree or preparing a favorite meal that has significance to both you and the loved one whom you've lost. And also, it is also important for us to remember that we can always ask for help. Help is always available, and we can go for there are grief counseling services that are available, mental health services are available, support groups and helplines that could help you during this time. And we can also seek support from our community or our friends or leaders who can help us at this difficult time. Now, grief because of a loved one is something, but also distress can also come from other types of losses or change. It could be because of a loss of a job, or inability to connect in person with friends, family, or religious organizations, or maybe missing special events and milestones like graduations, weddings, or vacations. All of these things can have drastic changes in our ways of life and our routine. And we have to remember that grief is a universal emotion, and there's no right or wrong way of experiencing it. And all losses are significant, and nobody should feel guilty about experiencing grief or distress from any loss that they experience in their lives. So even at this time, we need to acknowledge our losses and feelings of grief, find ways to express these losses and grief and find comfort maybe through art, writing, or talking to friends or family, cooking, music, and other creative practices. Maybe we can develop new rituals in our daily routine to stay connected with our family or friends. If we're staying together with a family, maybe we can consider playing a board game or, you know, exercising together or something like that. Or maybe if we are, you know, staying separately, then we can consider interacting through phone calls or apps that allow for playing of games together virtually. See, all of these things are available to us. But the important thing that we need to remember is that we need to try to stay in the present, focus on the aspects in our lives that we have control over right now. And remember that whatever it is, you are doing your best at the moment. So, so now when we look at resilience in general, we have talked about problem-focused coping and emotion focus coping. But the important thing is that we need to remember to stay focused. Breathing can really help us because breathing in calms our minds, and breathing out calms our breathing out also calms our mind and our bodies. And we have to remember that studies have found that factors associated with resilience, like I mentioned earlier, like self-care, staying connected, or perceiving social support, and all of these things are related to modifiable factors. So how to keep going on? And so we need to keep on being flexible, being respecting the individual or our own needs, keep staying connected, keep in touch with our own values and what is important to us, not to forget that there's a whole world out there and we're just a part of it. Communicate, very important, rest, and also seek help if you need it. Now, I've just put up this 24 hours toll-free helpline that we have at Suncare, and anyone can call. You can be anonymous, and someone will be there to talk to you at any point of time if you're going through a difficult time. Now, to end this presentation, I just want to read this quote by Arundhati Roy that says that whatever it is, coronavirus has made the mighty kneel and brought the world to a halt. Our minds are still racing back and forth, longing for a return to normality, trying to stitch our future to our past and refusing to acknowledge the rupture. But the rupture exists. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine the world anew. This one is no different. So let's hope this quote gives us hope that we can, break through this pandemic and, and also create a new world through this experience. Thank you very much. So if there are any questions,
I'll start with a question.
Sure.
Yes, Ms. Kharsati, you've talked about self-care, you've talked about the need to have family support. But what if somebody who is without family or social support, is going through something difficult at the moment? How does that person cope?
I understand that, some of us have people around us, some of us don't. But the thing is that even if we don't, help is available, and there are different ways we can seek help. Like I put up earlier, there is a toll-free helpline there where people can connect, and we can sort of try to connect you to other organizations and other people who are helping out during this time. For instance, if it's with financial aid, or if it's with other things. But help is available, even though we may not have people around us, but we are not alone. those laborers who don't have any job during these hard times. Okay, so how can we help I can see there's one question here that Monica Kharsati, how can we give advice to laborers who do not have any job during these hard times? Right, so there are organizations who are helping out, and I think the government is also helping out, giving some sort of financial support to people who are not being able to work at this point of time, or even for people who have lost their jobs. So certain organizations are available. I will have to get back to you, Monica, to find out exactly who is eligible for what.
Can I ask a question, Ms. Kharsati? Yeah. See, one of the most, maybe the most difficult and painful aspect of this particular disease is the fact that we are forced to, to isolate the ones we love, especially when they are ill, when they are ailing, whether at home or in the hospital. And sometimes that loved one, I think most of us have experienced that loved one, passed away without ever knowing that they are loved, or without the comfort of a dear one, beside them when they go. So that is something that has left a wound in the hearts and the minds of family and others. So how do we cope with that? How do we come to terms with the fact that we are not able to say goodbye? How do we receive closure in such a case? Thank you.
So the thing is that I understand that it's very difficult for us to lose a loved one at this point, because sometimes especially if the person has passed, we have lost our loved one because of this illness. We are not allowed to be there to take care of our loved one during their last few days. But the thing is that we have to remember that, like you said, ma'am, that the person does not feel loved at that point of time. But I don't believe that's the case. And because the thing is that we don't really know what the other person is experiencing. And if it's our loved one, I think they know that it's not because we wish to not be there for them, but it's because we have to at this point of time. We need to respect the protocols that have been set for us and everything, because it is difficult, no doubt. But the thing is that how do we gain closure is that we need to stop telling ourselves that our loved one does not feel loved, because it's not only at the last few moments that we experience love. We have been with them throughout, and they probably have experienced that love throughout. But the thing is that at that point of time, I can't speak on their behalf, but I'm pretty sure that all of us understand at this point of time that it's not something we choose, but it's something that is necessary. I hope that answers your question, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
And again, we need to also, it's not about the last few days that are important, but we can always, like I mentioned earlier, create a memory for them. We can, create certain rituals, because the normal way of grieving and the rituals that we're used to, we're not allowed to do that at this point. But we can create new rituals. We can, take part in certain activities, like, planting a tree or something like that, so that our loved ones the memory of our loved ones continue to stay with us for us as long as possible.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Kharsati, there's another question in the chat box. Yes, if someone has a mental disorder, what can they do to avoid getting COVID?
so that mental disorder, if you mean mental illness, see, the thing is that when we look at mental illness, it's not the same. There are different types of mental illnesses. Now, the thing is that how should we avoid getting COVID? I think it's the same for all of us. How we avoid getting COVID is that we stay, we maintain physical distance, we wear our masks, and we sanitize as possible, as frequently as possible, and we stay home as unless necessary. Now, again, if someone has a mental illness, it depends on what kind of illness. I cannot answer that. If it's a severe mental illness, now there are different ways. We also have telemedicine, which a person can consult to a doctor or anyone whom they would wish to speak to. So you can go to our website that is under Suncare, and you can book an appointment, and you can meet a professional, and if required, there is a delivery system, and you can get the medicines without having to leave your home. That is one thing. And if a person has severe mental illnesses, then it is important for them to continue with their medication, even if they're getting vaccination. This vaccination and the medicines have there's no correlation whatsoever. So you can continue to have your medicines, at the same time get vaccination. And if it's a person who has these more common mental illnesses like depression and anxiety, if they have been taking medicines, again, the delivery system is available. If not, then they can always contact us through telemedicine or through the toll-free helpline that I have put up earlier. Okay, Frankie, and I hope that answers your question. But Riti says that most people get scared about this vaccine, and how will you advise them? See, the thing is that, yes, a lot of people are scared about this vaccine, but the thing is that there's still a lot of stigma. How can we advise them, educate, learn about this vaccine and what it does? Basically, the vaccine, if you have the vaccine, you can still get infected with COVID, but the thing is that it helps you in not having very severe symptoms. So I have taken the vaccine. A lot of my colleagues have taken the vaccine, and one of my colleagues have been she's much older, and she had tested positive, but she did not experience any symptoms, even though she has other preconditions, medical preconditions. She's quite old, but then the only symptom when she tested positive was she could not smell, and now she's fine. So the thing is that I think vaccination is important, because you may still get the illness, you still may get the virus, but most probably you will not get the severe effects of the virus, because your body is working against it. I hope, but Riti, that answers your question. Monica says that from losing their parents to fear about getting sick, how can adults help children during this hard time? So I don't understand. Are you talking about how can we talk to children about the virus, or okay? But I will try to answer your question about the virus. How can we help children understand this virus. Okay, so the thing is that the CDC and the NIMHANS has also come up with these social stories that children can read. So it is first and foremost important for us to understand that children have certain understanding about this virus. It's not that they are completely oblivious to it, they understand. But the thing is that it's not only for us to tell them what we know, but first, I think when we try to talk to children, is first try to understand what they know, what knowledge they have about it. And from there, we try to correct their misunderstandings, if any. So the thing is that, of course, they would be scared of, you know, losing their parents and falling sick and all of that. But you have to also help them that we also need to also focus on the fact that if we maintain wash hands frequently or sanitize it, we are most likely not gonna have this. Would not get infected by this. There are the mortality rates are very low as compared to the recovery rates. So, but the thing is that we tend to, and I think when we read the news, we tend to look at, you know, number of new cases and number of deaths, but we sometimes forget to focus on the number of recoveries. Now, having this virus doesn't mean that it is the end, but it is possible that a majority of the people recover from this illness. So, Monica, I hope that answers your question. Lom Lang says that in what way would cooperate to get away from mental disorders? Okay. See, the thing is that in terms of mental illnesses, see, the thing is that, I mean, uh, we can't say when, we can't choose whether we get a mental illness or we don't. We can't choose an illness. Like, the same way we can't choose a mental illness. We can't choose what illness we want to have. Now, but the important thing is that we remember that uh, help is available. And the thing is that before these problems become severe, if we reach out to these the mental health services that are available, probably we need not have, like, you know, a very severe form of the illness. And because help is available, we have come a long way. I mean, many years now, that there are different ways of dealing with different problems. But if we are asking Relom that from a point of view, like, how do we cope with this stress, I think we need to also take care of ourselves. And like I mentioned earlier, take care of ourselves, exercise, try to focus on things that are under our control, maintain a routine. These are certain things that can help prevent further stress and help us from dealing with anxieties and depression as much as we can. But if we think that this is not enough, then help is available. Free to call to talk about it. And yeah, and you can take my number also, and you can call me whenever possible. Habab Yangpor. Miss, I'm in grade 12, art students, and I really want to perform well in my studies, but this pandemic made me feel unmotivated, and I feel strange to study because of the situation. So can you give me an advice how to study hard, especially these tough times? I understand, Hababyang. I mean, this is a very trying time for students as well as for teachers. I mean, getting used to this online mode of studying is very difficult. It's a huge adjustment um, for for students as well as for teachers. It's not an easy thing because these are not normal circumstances. But I think what we need to focus on is that we need to focus on what you want to do. Because the thing is, Hababyang, I understand that the schedule is all over the place right now because, you know, you don't get up early to go to school or go to college, and you don't, you don't have to, you have a set routine. But I think having a routine can really help, and trying to have a goal for yourself, your short-term goal, like for the day, what goals you have for yourself, and in the long-term goals can help you sort of stay motivated, I think. Because otherwise we get very easily distracted by the situation and everything. But we need to understand that we're not in this alone. All of us are trying to adjust, all of us are trying to work within these constraints. Okay, Hababyang, I hope that answers your question. Jiliuti, how can we adjust ourselves to this new environment? Okay, so the thing is that I think, all right, so all of us know that New Zealand has been doing very well in terms of how they have dealt with this virus. And I just recently read this article that they have produced on, social cohesion in a social cohesion in a post-COVID world. So basically, what they're trying to talk about is that social cohesion, as we know, is how a society cooperates and try to help each other survive and also to prosper through a difficult time. Now, so they talk about how each of us can work together even though it's a very trying time. And what is important is there's social cohesion. That is that when we have higher levels of social cohesion, we have higher levels of trust in each other, a sense of belonging to the community, or to the community that we're in, a willingness to participate and help others in the society, and also to work on policies that sort of can help us ensure a more inclusion in terms of social and economic situations. So basically what they're trying to since you all are students at this point of time, maybe how we can adjust is how we can work together and not only think about ourselves but also how we can help each other. Because as I said, building solidarity, that we are going through this together and not alone. Okay, Jiliuti, I hope that answers your question.
I ask one more question?
Sure.
So some of us do not have like the luxury of physical space, right? And some may be even dealing with claustrophobia. How do we create space for ourselves when we are all going through this lockdown?
So the thing is that physical space, like for instance, like if you're talking in terms of exercise, we don't need a lot of space to do that. Even if the best way to exercise is just to walk up and down the stairs, sometimes that helps. Even if you have just 2 flights of stairs, maybe, just 2 steps, that helps. Up and down, that helps us. That can help us maintain, have some exercise. And the thing is that social space in terms of, physical space in terms of getting space to work and everything, I think how we can create that is sometimes we need to, find a space, like even if we have to live together in, like, in one room or in 2 rooms. But the thing is that we can always find a time where some space to we can still go outside in terms of, like, outside our house or the balcony, or we still have some space It's not like in the cities where you're not really allowed to even step out of your own flat. Even to go down for a walk or something like that is not permissible. So the thing is that we can find a lot of problems in terms of our space and everything, but the thing is that I think we are still very lucky that we still have some space. We can still go out, we can still walk outside, even though there's lockdown and everything. But yeah, I mean, we're not so you know when our population is not so much that we cannot maintain that um, that physical distance. Ma'am, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. There's a question in the chat box.
Yeah, ma'am, most people are scared nowadays during this pandemic. What best advice we can give them in order to make them understand? Right. So, right, it depends on what they're scared about. Because, again, like I mentioned earlier, if it's the uncertainty that's making us scared, we need to focus on, what is under our control at the moment. Because if we want to find answers to those things which have no answers to, then it scares us even more. And if it's because of the virus, or if it's because of the vaccine, or if it's because of other things that we could educate, I think education is very, very important at this point of time, so that they understand. But the thing is that when we are trying to educate, we also need to remember that we do not force, because most of the time we tend to force. If a person does not understand, we try to force them to understand, but that just builds defenses on the other person. And I think if we try to understand, I mean, help them understand, is first we need to try to understand at what level they're functioning at, and then proceed from there. Because sometimes we only want to hear things that we want to, and and we can sort of tailor the way we speak to them based on their understanding and their knowledge. Okay, Rithyangmi, what about the vaccine? Can we really take it or not? See, the thing is, can we really take it or not? I mean, see, the thing is that I'm not an expert to advise you on the vaccine, but from what I understand of the vaccine is that it actually helps, like I mentioned earlier, helps us because it helps us form these antibodies that help us deal with the virus, fight the virus. So basically what what the vaccine does is just help us create more antibodies so that our bodies are prepared in fighting against the virus. Now, can we really take it or not? I mean, I don't know what is making you doubt that, because if it's something that helps us fight a virus, then I think it's a good thing. But I understand that there are a lot of misconceptions um, regarding the vaccine, and a lot of people have spread a lot of rumors about this and about that they have this and they have that, some chips or this and that. I mean, those are all things that have been circulated on social media, and before we believe them, I think we need to find the whether we need to find out whether they are reliable or not, because most of the time there are no basis for these theories or these conspiracy theories that they have, and basically they're just rumors. So if you want to learn more about the vaccine, I think you need to look for more reliable sources that will help you understand what this vaccine is about and how it's gonna work in your body and how it's gonna help you. Okay, Vithyangmi. I hope that answers it. Yeah, sure.
One question, Miss. Miss, as we all know that we are living in a very hard time, difficult time. So we face a lot of trouble in this current situation. Feeling loneliness, feeling depressions, no jobs. The future is very uncertain. And because of this, at the end of the day, they decide to give up their life by committing a suicide. So how can we prevent them from this dangerous death? How can we help them from this committing suicide, to prevent them from this committing suicide?
Right. I understand, Frankie, that this is a very trying time, and there are a lot of reasons why people think of taking their own lives. But we have to understand that whatever it is, nobody really wants to take their own lives, and it's only because of situations that take place that that make people take this step. See, suicide, I mean, if, according to statistics, every 40 seconds at least there is someone in this world who has taken his or her life, by taken their own lives at this every 40 seconds that we're talking here right now. But what we need to keep in mind is that suicide is 100% preventable. It is preventable, and the thing is that we need to understand what is making this person think that suicide is the only way out. Help is available. I have shared with you that toll-free helpline. But the thing is that it is important for us to also understand and be and not make a person. If a person shares with us the thought that probably it would be they would be better off, not being here or anything like that, we should not take these things lightly, and we need to be aware that we should not make them feel more guilty, because like I said earlier, nobody wants to reach that point. Nobody wants to think that way, but there are certain circumstances that push people to even have that thought. And if a person talks to you about it, please take it seriously and understand that it is a cry for help, number one. Secondly is that we try our best to not make them feel more guilty than they already do. Okay, I mean, for instance, we're so used to, like, when people say something like that, our first response mostly is like, don't say that, what about this, what about that, you have so much going on in your life, how can you think of that? Or maybe, what about your children, what about your parents, or what about this, what about that? I mean, such things we think helps the person feel better, but actually they really make that person feel more guilty for having such thoughts. So if a person tells you that they have these suicidal thoughts or ideations, please direct them to the right people who can talk to them about it. Make them understand that, try to understand them that at this point of time, probably they're feeling very hopeless and feeling very helpless about their ability to get out of this. But there are, other ways that, we can, look for together, or maybe we can seek help, and then you can look for help where, we can try to find a way out of this apart from taking your own life. All right, Frankie?
Yes, Miss. Yes.
I hope that answers your question. Okay. Yeah. Uh, what is the most effective way to calm a person down if he or she is having a panic or stress attack? Shan Kupar, I think to answer that, the most effective way to calm another person is to stay calm. Even whether a person is having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, or even if the person is just aggressive, the most effective way to calm them down is to stay calm yourself and try to speak to the person in a calm manner and help that person stay focused on if the person is having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, to stay focused on their breathing, on getting back to reality, on focusing on what is under our control. Because panic attacks or anxiety attacks usually happen when a person feels that they are out of control. They are losing control of themselves. So the best way is to try to help the person focus on their breathing, to calm down and take deep breaths and bring them back to right now, and probably that can help them feel more calm. Okay, Shan Kupar. Alright. Yeah. Is there anything else?
Yes, students, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. If not, let me just ask one last question, Ms. Kharsati. A philosophical question, maybe. There's a lot of fear going around with the vaccine hesitancy, and and all of this probably is because of the uncertainty of the situation, uncertainty for the future. So, how do we find meaning in all of this?
Right. Yeah. Of course, there's uncertainty, but the thing is that I know it's a very philosophical question, but then what I mean, I'll try to answer it as practical as possible. I mean, if we go back to research has found that sometimes when we focus on, of course there's a lot of negativity going around, like so much fear, so much uncertainty and everything that's going around. But if we try to focus on the positive aspects of this pandemic, for instance, most of us do not have time to spend time with our families because we're working, we're doing this, we're doing that. We hardly get time to spend time with our families. We hardly get time to rest, to sleep, to even like do activities that we would like to do but never had the time, or even read a good book which we never had the time to do so. But yes, there are so much uncertainties, but the thing is that if we try to focus on these positive aspects of this pandemic, how it has brought us together, how it has brought even communities together. Of course, I'm not saying that it's universal, because it's not always the case, but I can see how even communities are coming together, and we are working together to help fight this pandemic. And so probably, yes, there would be change, no doubt, like Arundhati Roy had said. There is change, but the thing is that probably there is a rupture in our normal meaning making process. But the thing is that this doesn't mean that it ends there, but it means that we find new ways of creating meaning, creating memories, and building ourselves through this pandemic. Okay, there's Sarah, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. All right. I think with there are no more questions. So I would like to thank you, Ms. Kharsati, for sparing your time and your expertise with us. I know there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of uncertainty at this moment, but what I think that the pandemic is also challenging us to bring out the best in us, to have patience and hope, to listen and to have empathy. And I think these are qualities that are worth nurturing. So anyways, thank you so much for taking us through those practical and effective steps to cope, not just with the pandemic, but with life in general. It has been an engaging and very resourceful session, and I'm sure that our students will definitely benefit from it. And so I think we will close with that. We've come to the end of a very useful and engaging session, and I hope, and we leave you with the hope that you'll be resilient and you'll always be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So to close the session, I would like to request Ms. B. Nonglai to please give the vote of thanks. Thank you again, Ms. Kharsati.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can. Yes, we can. Bami.
Okay. A very good evening to everyone present here. I, on behalf of the Counselling Cell of Synod College, would like to express my sincere gratitude to everyone present here for sparing your time and, for giving your valuable time to be with us and for your wonderful and engaging participation. I would also like to thank Ms. Naphisabet Kharsati for her time and expertise in helping the Synod College family cope with the many challenges and the many problems that has been highlighted just now, and helping us cope and build up resilience during such very trying times. I would also like to thank Dr. Mrs. Dor, coordinator of the IQEC Synod College, for taking the initiative to organize the program and for introducing the resource person today. I would also like to thank Dr. Lapasam, the convener of the Counselling Cell, and all the members for their help and support in making this program a success. Furthermore, the program would not be a success without the help and the technical expertise of Sir Joshi from the BCA Department, Synod College. Thank you, sir. And last but not the least, there may be many others who have contributed to the success of the program, but time does not permit me to name all of you, so please forgive me. With these few words, thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone, and stay safe.
Thank you so much, everyone. And Ms. Kharsati, thank you very much for responding to our invitation. We look forward to more interactions with you in the coming days. And students, thank you for joining. And just before we close, I want to leave you with a small quote. Once I was going through a comic, actually, a comic strip, and I found this very interesting quote. It says, "What is the bravest thing you can ever do?" And the answer was, the bravest thing you can ever do is to cry out for help when you need it. The bravest thing you can ever do is to cry out for help when you need it. So in case you are ever in need of somebody to listen to you, to talk to pray with you, and to be there with you through these difficult times, please remember the Counselling Cell, the teachers, we are here for you, and we would love to hear from you, to listen to you. All right? So stay safe. God be with you. And in case you have the opportunity to take the vaccine, please do take the vaccine for your own health and for the health and safety of others around you. Thank you so much from my part. The end, shall we close now? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, students.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, teachers.
Thank you, teachers.